Huge round of applause for our next anchors. And thank you all. Have a really beautiful day.
Bye.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Vaishnavi, thrilled to be your host for this wonderful event.
And this is Sharmin Sheikh standing before you with a great pleasure and honor. As a software engineer turned consultant at Capgemini, we welcome you guys to this incredibly exciting and transformative topic in the world of technology, that is CI/CD on Google Cloud.
Mr. Dharmesh Vaya is an authority when it comes to Google Cloud and has earned the prestigious title of Google Developer Expert and is also a solutions architect at Palo Alto Networks. With a wealth of knowledge and experience, he has made significant contributions to the tech community and have been recognized for his expertise in CI/CD practices.
We have a distinguished speaker with us today, a true expert in the field. Let's give a warm round of applause and welcome Mr. Dharmesh Vaya.
Hello. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome for the Cloud Community Days Pune 2023. How are you folks doing? Cool. So that's me. That's Dharmesh Vaya, Solutions Architect at Palo Alto Networks. I work primarily into cybersec and specifically securing your workloads on cloud. A bit more about myself. You can read more of this on my blog called Cloud Zone. K is mainly for my work that I'm doing with Kubernetes and the likes of open source things. So yeah, let's try to understand. In fact, the keynote had almost everything what I want to cover. So thanks, Roman, for covering the demo. So now I'm skipping the demo piece. Yeah. So what I'm trying to help you all understand is the fact that how you are going to do CI/CD. But now since the demo is something that you have already seen, you have already understood, we'll try to focus a bit more on one of the unsung part of, including, what is there in CI/CD, which is even the security aspects. And now that I cover a lot of these subjects around security, that is something also which I'll try to help you all understand where you can apply DevSecOps into your entire CI/CD journey. So again, just to refresh you all, right, or reiterate and understand that, where exactly the CI piece comes into picture, where does the CD piece comes into picture. And yes, if you try to recollect from the keynote part, right, there was what Roman had said is around what is your inner loop and your outer loop of development. Okay, just try to relate to that, okay, and you'll easily try to understand, okay, where does CI/CD fit into the landscape. So anything that is happening on a developer's machine, where you're building your application, planning your application, okay, that is more on the CI part of it, okay. But when it comes to the deployment part, the release part of it, okay, that is where the D, that is the deployment or the delivery aspect comes into picture. All right, so that is in a nutshell what you can say for CI and CD. Now, if you have to understand, okay, how does this work on GCP? Now, there is a very standard workflow, okay, of any CI/CD flow. But if you talk from a GCP perspective, right, there is something around how you kind of change your code, you push it to a repo. Then there is cloud build, which Roman again had showed it in the demo, that how does cloud build actually understand that there is something happening on your repo. When this change happens with your repo, right, so it is actually detecting a commit. When the commit is detected, you can add more checks into your whole deployment pipeline or your CI/CD pipeline. Now these checks can be as simple as running your unit test. It can be building your container image, okay? or even pushing your container image to a registry. On top of this, you can also do layers around security checks as well. So for example, if you want to kind of do a binary auth on your container image, or you want to also do a code linting, I would say code analysis or a static code analysis, that is something that you can do at between these layers as well. So where I'm trying to help you all understand is the fact that the entire CI/CD process that you are seeing here, okay, a lot of these components you can readily do it on GCP, but including layers of security as well. And finally, of course, if there is something around, when the CI pipeline is updated, there is a image which has been pushed to the registry, and there is a trigger that goes out that, hey, there is a new image ready to be deployed. Do you want to take it forward? So that is where the manifest files will kind of inform cloud build from an environment perspective, and from there you kind of take it forward to the build stages as well. So this is how it actually looks. So if you talk specifically more in terms of container world, right? This is what it actually looks like. Okay, so the CI piece, someone is as a developers, there can be multiple teams pushing code. Okay, they are putting it on their source code, and these source codes can be anything. Like it can be GitHub, it can be your cloud source repos, it can be Bitbuckets of the likes, anything of that. As soon as a trigger, as a commit is kind of pushed, okay, cloud build is watching it, okay, and it is watching for any kind of change in these your repos, and from there it kind of does the next step. So which I mentioned around either the security scans, the unit test, or any other checks that you want in order for your code to be maintaining a particular quality. Now these quality gates can be again related to functional. It can be related to security, anything. And that is where it kind of goes into the release. So that's where you see over here that the first two parts, okay, which is where the source is, where the image is being built, that is your CI piece. So there is a bit of an overlap again there at certain stages, but yes, that is essentially the CI piece. And the deployment part, the release aspect, the rendering of the container image and all, that is the D, which is the delivery or the continuous delivery aspect. Now, again, how you can do it in a serverless manner. So the ones which I was showing earlier is more towards a GKE-based deployment, okay? Now, Vaibhav had taken a talk around, where to run these applications. So in order to run and choose the compute platform, you kind of understood it from Vaibhav's talk, okay? But how to deploy and where to kind of, integrate your pipelines, the entire CI/CD pipeline can still integrate, okay, with your cloud build and your, cloud runs of the likes, okay? So if you see this one, the left-hand side, the developer part remains the same. The cloud build part remains the same, which is, it is waiting for a trigger or a build to be triggered, okay? A build is created or a build container image is created, it will push that image to a container registry. Now from the container registry, you can pull, the cloud run instance, you can call it an instance, so you can pull that image from there, knowing that that is the latest image, and from there it gets deployed. Not only that, especially from a feature of Cloud Run, you can also roll back to a previous version, distribute a traffic, say for example you want to do an A/B testing or so, you can do that as well within the scope of Cloud Run as well. All right, so what exactly is cloud build allowing you to do? And since we are talking more CI/CD, okay, that is where we try to understand that, what it is helping you to do. It is first and foremost helping you prepare your application, or rather these are the steps in order to use cloud build. You prepare your applications, write your code, use the libraries, build a configuration file. Now this configuration file is nothing but as simple as a Docker file. You kind of specify, okay, where you want to run, what are the packages you want to use, which is your work directory, which port you want to expose, as simple as creating a Docker file. So that is your configuration. From there, you submit to Cloud Build, which is where the integration happens, and then it is executed and deployed to the registry. So the same 5 steps which I mentioned, okay, it is happening at the Cloud Build layer, okay. So it's essentially the important part to understand is that how it gets integrated. how there is a trigger, and from there it kind of pushes to a container registry, and from there to a deployment. The deployment, which is, your payload, can either be run on a GKE or a Cloud Run, doesn't matter. Okay, so this is again in a nutshell how it actually works. The same, from a demo perspective, what Roman had shown, but more from an integration perspective, where you set up your build pipelines or your code repos with Cloud Build. From there, you kind of select a repo, and from there you choose how is this repo getting linked. Is it a Docker file? Is it a Cloud Build.yaml file? You can specify as you need, right? Now, this is what happens, or the previous section that you saw, which is Cloud Build. Okay, it is good and fairly configurable when it comes to serverless workloads or standalone workloads. But when it comes to large orchestrations that you need to do, okay, there is something of an additional layer that you might need, which is where Cloud Deploy comes into picture. Now, essentially, this is again another topic in itself, and another additional time might be required. But yes, just to tell you in a nutshell, right? Cloud Deploy, okay, it is mainly a way in which you can deploy your container workloads, okay, for specifically for Kubernetes workloads, or GKE that you mean. In a nutshell, or behind the scenes, it is actually scaffold. Okay, I would say under the hood, okay, it is scaffold, but running as a managed service. Okay, so that is how Cloud Deploy is actually working. So it kind of picks all the images, renders it. There are multiple environments that you can create, and from there you can link your clusters. From that you can kind of choose which to deploy, whether you want to even have a kind of an intermediate manual review. So what was shown for Spinnaker, the similar things can be done in Cloud Deploy as well. So if you again see the pipeline creation aspect of this, again, the left-hand side remains the same, where the developer is creating a trigger. Now, in this case, I have shown a symbol of a GitLab, or even a GitHub is there. Okay, so it depends whether it's a self-hosted repo or a GitHub that is on the public repo, doesn't matter. From there, you kind of, again, Cloud Build will be there to build the image. But here, the deployment aspect is considered and taken care by Cloud Deploy. Why? Because you have multiple clusters to deploy your workload, and that is where Cloud Deploy helps you do that. So you can have, again, a manual intervention or an automated one to kind of pick and choose which release you want to deploy, whether you want to do a rollback or not, and then pick it that way. So again, this is a very similar thing from a CI/CD perspective, but more from a perspective for, let's say you want to do a Spinnaker and GKE, which is, say for example, you want to do a blue-green canary kind of a deployment. The steps remain more or less very similar. It's just the tooling that would differ in order to give you more control in terms of the steps, in terms of the integrations. Okay, so this is how Cloud Deploy actually looks like. Okay, and if you see over here, there are two environments, and three environments practically: dev, QA, and prod. Okay, now if I want to promote my build from dev to QA, it is happening in an automated manner. Okay, however, if I want to do from QA to prod, I want some manual intervention or a way of checking that is it the legitimate build, is it meeting all quality gates and all. So I can do a review over there and then allow it to kind of get it deployed on production. So this is where Cloud Deploy is actually helping you to do and achieve these kind of capabilities. Now, just to kind of highlight from a security perspective. So I kind of saw that when Roman kind of introduced how you can introduce security in each and every stage, it is essential to know it from the beginning. And to help you understand, just to make you aware that at what layers, what kind of attacks happen. So this is something important for you to understand. So at the code stage, it can be as simple as a vulnerable code. Your library that you are using, let's say even a Node.js library, apologies to any Node developers out here, it can be vulnerable, okay? Because it's an open source library, you don't have control. That library can be vulnerable and getting injected into your code. It can be insecure templates. How many of you all are using Terraform these days? Okay, a lot of them. Are you all writing the entire module by yourself? No, you're using boilerplate code, right? Do you know if that boilerplate code is secured or not? Does it have any controls for that or not? So these are the layers where, security loopholes get introduced at the first stage, which means that you need to kind of safeguard your code in right from the beginning itself. Second, at the build stage, your CI/CD pipelines. Of course, we are talking of cloud build, which is having all sorts of authentication and mechanisms to kind of safeguard. But let's say you are using something like a Jenkins or any other build tools. Now, over here also, since these are open source tools, there are ways in which these tools itself can get compromised. So you will see that there are ways in which malicious images can get injected, secrets can get exposed due to the nature and the mechanism of these open source tools. And that is where, a lot of adversaries take control on. In fact, one of the Stack Overflow attacks that happened was because of an vulnerability within a self-hosted GitHub environment or a Travis environment. So that is where you see that a lot of these vulnerabilities and attacks happen at the code and the build stage. And if you prevent it early, well and good. Okay. And of course, even at the deploy stage, since we mentioned around how it can be further injected. So if say for example, a container image is there and an adversary gains access to your registries. What they can do is, instead of your container image, they kind of push in their own version of a container image which is similar in nature and inject it as a malicious image or a poisoned pipeline itself. So that entire pipeline is now poisoned and your workload will be further escalated to be in an attacked manner or so. Okay. And finally, of course, at the run stage, your workloads can still be vulnerable, can still be susceptible to any sort of attacks, whether it's a DDoS or from an infra perspective, it can be an overly permissive access. So I'll take another 2 to 3 minutes. I'm almost over time. Yeah. So the whole idea is, irrespective whether you are doing CI/CD or not, okay, whether you are using cloud build or not, okay, the idea is to kind of use security right from your code stage to your run stage, okay. Go left, which is the whole principles behind shift left, okay. It's not just from an agile perspective, but shift left in your entire app life cycle. Do an early detection, prevent it early, okay. So whether it is an image scan, whether it's a code scan, or it is any kind of vulnerability management that you need to do it early in your life cycle. So this way you would be safeguarding, protecting your CI/CD pipelines in a much secured manner, okay, and it will eventually end up to how robust your application that you are writing. So if your CI/CD pipelines are secure, most of the cases it's just your application things that you would need to validate against. This is again another reference architecture where you can see that from the GCP console, again, the same stuff in a crisp and shortened manner, but I am doing a lot of checks at each and every layer. So whether it's a scan of an image that I'm doing, or I'm applying a binary authorization, as mentioned by Roman in the initial slides, the similar image, but it is giving a security layer at each and every stage of gating and the movement of the container builds. So that's it almost from my side. Again, if you want to try it out by yourself, either cloud build and cloud deploy, yes, Kubernetes might sound like you are lifting up a rocket, but yes, it is as simple as doing these 2 code labs. You can try it out by yourself using the GCP credits, and that's it from my side. Thank you again, Pune. Again, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and refer to my blog, which is cloudzone.co.in. And anything you need to talk around cloud and cloud security, feel free to connect. I am based at Palo Alto, working with a product called Prisma Cloud. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dharmesh sir, for such an amazing session.
Your deep understanding and ability to simplify the complex concept really helped us a lot in the field of CI/CD. Thank you so much.
So I would like to call Nyanada for the further instructions.
I would like to call Mr. Vaibhav and Mr. Neera for felicitation of Dharmesh sir.